Conquest is the perfect villain for Invincible. I know he's not the strongest, though he's very close, and he's not the one with the most psychological depth either. But by being just pure evil, he does everything a great villain should do. He breaks the hero physically and psychologically, and tests his entire value system. After facing Conquest, Mark is never the same. His mindset transforms completely. From this,
We don't kill! You can't just kill people and pretend it's no big deal.
to this.
If anyone else ever puts my family or anyone I love at risk, I won't hesitate to kill them.
We understand Conquest as soon as he arrives on Earth because he doesn't act mysterious. He's arrogant as hell, but he also knows he's incredibly powerful. His mission is to verify that Mark has prepared Earth for the arrival of the Viltrum Empire. Mark never agreed with this, but Anissa and General Krieg thought he would eventually give in to his Viltrumite side. But Conquest isn't like the soldiers we met before. He doesn't care about Viltrum's philosophy or the prosperity of the Empire. Sure, Anissa and Krieg were just as violent as him because they were raised that way, but at least their actions had a logical motive. They wanted the Empire to keep expanding, and they were convinced they were the heroes of their own story. They thought they were doing Earth a favor by conquering it, because they would improve the lives of everyone who joined the Empire. Of course, there's also the small little detail of Earth becoming a Viltrum colony, forcing humanity to abandon all its beliefs and any sense of freedom. But Anissa and Krieg thought all that would be for a greater good. Conquest isn't like that. Like a character from a Neketsu manga, his only motivation is to face powerful enemies and someday die in glorious combat. He thanks Mark for giving him the best fight of his life because that's all that matters to him. It's the only thing that brings him satisfaction. Despite being the most powerful soldier in the Empire, he doesn't care about being a good agent. All he wants is the opportunity to fight freely, which means he's not going to hold back against Mark. This sets him apart from the other Viltrumites Invincible had faced so far, as his dad, Krieg, and Anissa had spared his life. All three left him defenseless and had the chance to kill him, but they let him live because you could reason with them. But Conquest has no mercy whatsoever.
You think I'm gonna give you a chance to surrender? I am having the time of my life here.
This isn't new in Invincible because we already had Battle Beast, who also wants to fight to the death. But the fundamental difference with Conquest is that our furry friend has a code of honor. He only fights those who can stand up to him, not weak creatures who wouldn't last half a round against him. He gets no satisfaction from a fight he knows he'll win without effort. Battle Beast doesn't switch sides for no reason, showing he has some loyalty to people as strong as him, or who helped him in the past. And most importantly, he wants all his confrontations to be fair. If he faces an opponent who lost a leg, Battle Beast is capable of tearing off his own leg too, so they can face each other on equal terms. Conquest has no code of honor. He's capable of killing men, women, and children without feeling any remorse, because he's a psychopath. Unlike Battle Beast, he isn't loyal to anyone. He doesn't even believe in the causes of the Viltrum Empire, and he doesn't care if his fights are fair. At the end of Season 3, he knocks out half of Oliver's teeth and literally tries to split him in half. He knows the boy is no match for him because he defeated him with just one blow, but this racist grandpa is so wretched that he enjoys hurting those weaker than him. If Mark hadn't intervened, Conquest would have killed his brother and laughed afterward. Battle Beast, on the other hand, wouldn't even have faced Oliver because it would have been dishonorable to fight someone below his level. This mindset makes Conquest the most dangerous villain Mark has faced yet. He's also incredibly sadistic. Conquest doesn't hesitate to threaten civilians to motivate Mark and make the fight last longer. He forces him to watch hundreds of people die, just like his dad did. But the difference is that Nolan did it to show Mark that humans were weak and not worth his concern, since he didn't belong to the same species. He took no satisfaction in the destruction of Chicago. He was simply fulfilling his mission. Conquest, on the other hand, enjoys killing innocents and wants Mark to suffer by watching them. Conquest suggests to Mark that he let his brother die and use that time to catch his breath. Later, he mocks his bond with Eve, saying the love they feel for each other makes them weak and vulnerable. To make himself even more despicable, he licks Eve's blood after impaling her and leaving her for dead.
Waste.
This is the only villain in Invincible, at least so far, who has no redeemable qualities. We can't empathize with Conquest at any point, because it's impossible to agree with his way of seeing life. I know he comes from a hyper-violent culture where only the strong survive, and therefore he wants to face strong people until someday he's killed in combat. We can understand that, but he's not like Angstrom, who used to be a good guy who suffered a lot because of Invincible's variance, and that's why he seeks revenge. We can even understand that Nolan killed so many people since he was taught it was acceptable, but now we empathize with him as he regrets everything he did and misses his family. Even Anissa has moments of weakness later on, and she's the one who does something unforgivable to Mark. I have no idea how they'll adapt that in the show. But Conquest neither seeks redemption nor follows a logical motivation. The closest thing we have to a vulnerable moment is this scene near the end of the fight. Conquest confesses to Mark that the other Viltrumites are afraid of him. He says he has no friends and feels a little lonely because even his companions see him as a monster. But it's not enough for us to empathize with him, especially after he's raised terrorized half the city, killed dozens of people, and left Eve on the brink of death. Because we shouldn't empathize with Conquest. We should hate him. I know he shares many traits with Sinister Mark, the variant who killed his universe's Nolan. Some might say he's the perfect invincible villain, since he's an evil version of Mark. But so far, this variant hasn't had even 2 minutes of screen time, so we can't put him on the same level as Conquest. Conquest works like Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. He's not just a person, but a force of nature. You can't negotiate with him, you can't talk to him, it doesn't even make sense to try to understand his plans. Conquest isn't nearly as intelligent or manipulative as the Joker, but he hurts the hero in the same way. As I told you in the intro, he's not just a physical threat to Mark, he also challenges his entire value system. He forces him to break his only rule, something that will mark him for the rest of his life. This is the first time Mark kills someone on purpose, or at least he thinks he does, because Cecil lets Conquest recover in an underground base. But what matters is that Mark believes he killed him, and is convinced he did the right thing, thinking it was the only way to save humanity.
Where's Conquest?
He's dead. You killed him.
Where's his body? Burn it.
This is a big change from what we've seen, as Mark used a different strategy in each season. In season 1, Mark tried to negotiate with his dad instead of fighting him. He knew he couldn't defeat him in combat, but beyond that, he wanted to convince him not to conquer Earth. As if starring in a Naruto episode, he tried to use his words and his bond with the antagonist to defeat him without getting into a fistfight. Some will say that strategy didn't work because Omni-Man smashed his face and left him half dead. But it actually did work. Nolan decided to fly away from Earth, deserted, and abandoned everything he believed in to start a new life. His love for Mark led him to betray the Empire, so Mark managed to win, even though he ended up beaten to a pulp. If he hadn't tried to negotiate with Omni-Man and had confronted him outright, he probably would have been killed. Something similar happened in season 2. In the last episode, Angstrom Levy kidnapped Oliver and Debbie. Instead of trying to kick his ass the moment he saw him, Mark once again chose to negotiate. As soon as he recognized Levy, he wanted to talk to him because he knew he was a good man before suffering the accident. He was supposedly a pretty smart guy, with whom you could have an educated conversation, but this strategy didn't work. Mark wasn't able to convince Angstrom to abandon his quest for revenge. Once Levy broke his mom's arm, Mark abandoned negotiations and literally punched him through the entire multiverse. He didn't stop even when Angstrom could no longer defend himself, and he killed him, or at least he thought so, but he spent the entire 3rd season regretting it.
All that time I thought.
This is where Conquest comes in. At the end of season 3, Mark skips all the previous steps. He doesn't try to negotiate or talk with this old man. He tells him directly that all he wants to do is hit something with all his strength, and Conquest is delighted because he has no intention of negotiating either. He doesn't have a bond with Mark, as was the case with Nolan, and there's no logic behind his actions, as there was with Angstrom. This guy enjoys fighting, period, so there's nothing to discuss. He can't be held in any prison on Earth, at least as far as Mark knows, so he's certain he won't stop until he dies.
Is this what you wanted? Still having fun?
I think the good with the bad.
It's a situation similar to the end of Man of Steel, where Superman decides to kill Zod. He doesn't do it because he's threatening this family, but because Zod tells him he'll never stop. He will always be a threat to humanity, even if Superman defeats him in this battle. The difference is that Clark could break Zod's legs, and that would be it. The threat would be over. Mark can't do the same with Conquest, who surpasses him in speed, strength, experience, and training. At this point in the series, Mark has no chance of defeating Conquest in hand-to-hand combat without help, as Cecil acknowledges he's even more powerful than Nolan. If it weren't for the fact that Conquest played with Mark for half the fight, he would have killed him 2 minutes after arriving on Earth.
So far, I've been playing with you, getting to know a new toy.
This puts Mark in a kill-or-be-killed situation, which hadn't happened to him throughout the show. As soon as Eve gets a power-up and burns half of Conquest's body, Mark has to take advantage of it. He won't get another chance to beat him in combat. Even after losing an arm and being worn out from his fight with Eve, Conquest is still stronger and more resilient than Mark, so the boy has to keep smashing his face until he can't lift a finger. He doesn't just want revenge for what he did to Eve and Oliver. Mark knows that if he lets Conquest get up, he could destroy the entire planet. He decides to abandon his moral code for the greater good, so in a slightly twisted way, Conquest wins. He may have lost the physical battle, but he managed to break Invincible psychologically. He showed him that his moral code was useless.
I don't understand.
Throughout the fight, Conquest asked Mark to give it his all, so the battle would be worthwhile. He wanted Mark to fight like a Viltrumite, the same thing his dad asked him when they were on Thraxia. That time, Mark was about to kill Thula, but he held back, and that almost cost him his life. This time, he didn't make the same mistake. After Eve fell in combat, he didn't hold back and fought like a true Viltrumite until he annihilated his enemy. He saved humanity, but everyone will remember this fight as the moment Mark stopped being a traditional hero. All because of a perfect villain who broke him in every possible way. Of course, a classic hero like Spider-Man would never have killed his opponent the way Mark did, even if it seemed there was no alternative. That's one of the big differences between Spider-Man and Invincible. Despite what the internet says, they're not the same type of hero. We explain why in this video over here.
We should watch it!